Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 13th, 2024 Arlington County Board of Zoning Appeals. Good evening and welcome. I am Richard Kaplan, Chair of the Board of Zoning Appeals. The board is made up of 5 citizens appointed by the Circuit Court. In addition to myself, we have Vice Chair Inta Malice, Judy Freshman, Portia Clark, and Lindsay Arthurs. Also present is the professional staff, including Blake Bowen, Board of Zoning Appeals Coordinator, Meg Ryan, BZA Associate Planner, Brett Goldberg, BZA Associate Planner, and Stephen Rissy, Zoning Prim Supervisor. To avoid disruptions, we ask that you please place your mobile devices in silent mode. Before we begin tonight's hearing, I will discuss the board's powers and procedures for tonight's hearing. The board's powers are prescribed in the Code of Virginia and are set out in further detail in the county's zoning ordinance adopted by the county board. The Board of Zoning Appeals does not have the power to rezone property or to amend the regulations set forth in the ordinance. That authority rests solely with the county board. This board does have the authority to do 3 things. First, the BZA can approve use permits that allow modifications of placement requirements for structures on 1- and 2-family lots where there is no option in the zoning ordinance to allow such modifications. In order to approve a use permit, the Arlington zoning ordinance requires that this board find that the proposal will not adversely affect the health or safety of persons residing in the neighborhood, will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to property or improvements in the neighborhood, and will not be in conflict with the purposes of the master plan and land use and zoning related policies of the county. In making these findings, the BZA shall consider whether the modification will promote compatibility of the development with the surrounding neighborhood because of the structure's overall size, footprint, and placement are similar to those of the structures on the properties surrounding the lot in question, and whether the modification will help preserve natural landform, historical features, and/or significant trees or foliage. When approving use permits, the Board of Zoning Appeals may impose conditions that it deems necessary and in the public interest, including but not limited to the duration of the use permit. This board does not have the authority to grant use permits to modify requirements for expanded housing option developments. Second, the BZA can grant variances from the specific requirements of the zoning ordinance. And third, the BZA can decide appeals of the decisions of the zoning administrator. Now on to tonight's hybrid hearing. For those who are participating in person, on the front table you will find a QR code linking to a copy of the application package, including the staff report for each case before us this evening. For those participating virtually, a copy of each application package can be found on the Arlington County BZA website. There is also a link in the chat for the application packages. I recommend that if you have not yet seen that report for your case, that you review the report before your case is called. If you are attending virtually and lose connectivity, please reconnect with us by phone. If you are attending via Teams, please keep yourself muted and cameras off until called upon. Turn off the sound on any other devices around you to minimize interference. When called upon to speak, please turn on your camera and unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon that is located in the meeting command bar. County staff does not have the ability to unmute you. The meeting chat is active for technical support assistance only. The meeting chat should not be used for discussion, public comments, questions about agenda items, or requests for more information. All public comments must be shared verbally or have been previously provided in writing for the record during the assigned public testimony period. This evening, staff will call each case and will provide a brief staff report and recommendation. Next, board members will ask any questions of staff they may have. Applicant or their representative will be given an opportunity to make comments to support the application or appeal. Next, all speakers for the item will be called. Speakers must fill out a speaker slip online or is available on the table in the front of the room. After we hear from speakers for and against the proposal, the board may permit the applicant a brief opportunity to clarify any points. The board may ask questions of any speakers, but does not permit any cross-examination or direct questioning by others. For tonight's hearing, this board has deemed the following time limits for speakers sufficient: 20 minutes for applicants of appeals, 5 minutes for applicants of use permits and variances. We have deemed 3 minutes for representatives of organizations and 2 minutes for individuals as sufficient. After the board has gathered all the information we need and have discussed the case, we will decide the matter by voting on a motion duly made and seconded. A majority is needed to approve any motion. Please be respectful of the time allotted. This is a public forum and tonight's meeting will be recorded and posted on the county's website. All information associated with tonight's meeting, whether spoken or written, is subject to the Freedom of Information Act requirements. Any appeal from the decision of this board must be made to the circuit court in accordance with state law. After your case of interest is heard, you are welcome to stay for the balance of the session or leave at your convenience. Before we get started with our cases, I understand that we have an appeal, ZAPP 24-000-3 to schedule for our June, is it the 13th, Mr. Bowen? Sorry.
Yes, I believe the appellant in this case has indicated that date in May would not be desirable and that June would be more workable as an appeal hearing date.
And is our hearing on June 13th?
June 12th, I believe.
June 12th.
Let me confirm that date.
It is
June 12th.
I've been told it's the 12th.
Okay, thank you.
So I would like to seek unanimous consent from my colleagues to schedule ZAPP 24-0003 for our normal hearing on June 12th. Hearing no objections, let it be scheduled. With that scheduling done, Mr. Bowen, can you please call the first case on the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Kaplan, the first case on the agenda is case number V-11919-23-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Melissa and Jael Diaz, the owners, to permit a left side setback of 3 feet to the building wall, 1.9 feet to the building eave instead of 8 feet to the building wall, 5 feet to the building eave as required, to permit an aggregate side yard setback of 15.5 feet instead of 18 feet as required, and to permit a street setback of 16.5 feet to the porch, 16 feet to the porch eave instead of 21 feet to the porch, 19.5 feet to the porch eave as required, and to permit a street setback of 23.2 feet to the building wall instead of 25 feet as required, all from South Columbus Street, regarding a new 2-story side addition and garage below, a new front porch addition, a new 2-story rear addition with screen porch, and a 2nd-story addition to an existing one-family dwelling in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 1326 South Columbus Street within the Claremont Civic Association. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit request with conditions. And I will note that we have an additional speaker who has signed up to speak on this case.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Do my colleagues have any questions for staff on this first item?
I do. Mr. Chairman,
Malice, please.
am I overlooking it, or I'm not seeing a plat that's showing the improvements?
Let me take a look at our application packet. There should be a plat.
I think that's necessary.
Yeah, it just looks like there are plans.
Yeah, and it looks like the existing condition and plans, but
Right, the plat that's there, yes.
Yeah, so I think we have what would be called an existing plat, which is, let's see.
we see the existing.
Okay, and right after that is what we would consider a proposed site plan. It doesn't have a signature or seal of a surveyor, but we only require one certified drawing for a submission.
Are you talking about this?
It has the numbers G001 in the bottom right corner. Yes, that was considered an acceptable form of a site plan for the proposed conditions.
You can't read it.
I've blown it up. That's the only reason I can. And I still need my glasses.
And Ms. Malice, if you're inclined to look at the virtual copy or the digital copy, it's page 13 would be that plan.
I have the paper copy in front of me. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Can't read it.
Yeah, you can zoom in on the virtual copy if that's a little bit easier.
Can you put that up?
Brad, are you able to pull it up on screen potentially?
If you just go to that corner and really blow it up there. Oh, you gotta flip it too.
Yeah, and a little bit of rotation. Thanks.
There.
You slide it over just a little bit more to the left so we can see the, oh, sorry, the other way. Yeah. So we can read those words.
I think the format, it makes it really impossible to compare
Yeah,
a traditional plat with this kind of a format,
Yeah.
even if it was large enough to read.
yeah. This is not what we usually get. So. $15.
It's really hard to compare.
Yeah, what are those peaks that we're looking at?
It's the roof. Like it's an aerial almost. But the dimensions are there, so you can't like, it's
It's plan view, but it's got peaks on it. That's,
like the line above the peaks is the top of the roof.
It's like a bird's eye view.
Yeah.
And Brad, it might be helpful also to scroll to the building elevations, I think, which are a few pages later to kind of show what it looks like, looking at it straight on as well.
well, the elevations we can see, it just, we're trying to, that was in our packet, but can we go back to the numbers? So is it possible just to point to the dimensions that are being approved?
Yeah, so the applicant's requested a bit of wiggle room, so it doesn't exactly match what the plot is showing. So the left side for the request of 3 feet, I believe it's the 3 foot 1 inch on this side.
And a 1
Mr. Goldberg, can you turn your microphone on?
Oh, it is on right now.
15.5.
Yeah, I have mine.
Twenty-one feet to the porch.
Yeah, so as far as the 3 feet, so that's what they're showing for the side setback. The request is 3, and then showing as 3 feet 7 inches here. And then for the 1.9 foot building eve, that would be this 2.2 feet 5 inches on the left side. And just as a clarification, the dash line is the building wall. Yeah, proposed front setback to the porch. Is the 17 feet 1 inch right here. And they're requesting 16.5 feet.
This is May Grind. Just want to help Brett out a little bit. So they have both what they're thinking the setback will be, which is the top number, and below it they have the minimum requirement, kind of that room for construction error. So that's why you see two numbers. So that bottom number is what we're putting in the resolution language.
Is it possible to have applicants prepare plats the normal way? I mean, so that we don't have to take time to,
It is not a submission requirement to have a certified survey plat for both the existing and proposed conditions. As long as one of the plats is certified, we accept it by staff standards. It can certainly be a request, from to the applicants, but we cannot necessarily not move an application forward just because we don't have a plat for the proposed conditions.
I do like them, but I'd be reluctant to have another one prepared just because of the cost that already goes into the plans that they're submitting. It's just enough. But I think the person who did my plans gave us one too, and I think they usually do.
Well, sometimes they just draw in the number. That's fine, even if it's hand drawn,
Yeah.
to show where the relief is being requested. Because
I have a feeling they probably have it. They just didn't submit it.
that was my the other question. I just was kind of a general question on the disclosure. Have we decided that we are not requiring mortgage companies?
I think that is a county has decided that that's not required.
That's okay.
Yeah, we usually redact them now if people do include them by mistake.
It's too ripe for fraud for being a public document.
Okay. No, I just was checking. And then just a note that the applicant's address under the signature somehow got a different kind of font in there.
Yeah, I noticed that the street.
The street is South QPAUY.
Somebody tried
Instead of Columbus, right?
Somebody edited the PDF in it.
Yeah. So it's the same, just for the record, it's the same as the address, presumably.
Yeah, I noticed that, but because the address was up above, I overlooked it. Is that it for my colleagues for the moment? Is the applicant with us? Come on down.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Melissa Diaz, and accompanying me is my husband, JL Diaz.
Good evening.
Excuse us.
Can you raise the podium so we're having trouble hearing
Podium
you?
raises to the right. There's a button that will raise the podium so we can hear you.
But before we move on, I wanted to mention earlier, our architect is joining us virtually and he's a speaker. Would it help if he walked us through that proposed plat?
I think we're good with staffs walking us through, but
Okay.
that would have
Okay.
been helpful too.
Thank you.
Yes, and as you mentioned, Dan Moreno-Holt is joining us via Teams. Our residence is located at 1326 South Columbus Street, and we're currently seeking setback relief for a renovation project. We have some supplemental documents that we would like to provide at this time, if that is okay. So in that document is just another outreach letter that we left in one of our neighbors 4929's mailbox, and then also pictures of our retaining wall that we will discuss, that I'll discuss tonight. So as you will see from our property plat, a significant portion of our backyard is occupied by a retaining wall. Despite exploring the possibility of relocating it, the associated costs make it unfeasible for us. Therefore, extending our home backward is not an option due to this retaining wall. Our proposal entails adding a garage to the left side when facing the property, incorporating a second-story addition and extending the front and rear porches. Although we have made efforts to enhance the aesthetic of our home, its age requires extensive renovation and replacement of various components, if not all. We want to emphasize that this project is intended solely for residential purposes of our growing family of 4 and our 2 dogs. As outlined in the staff report, we conducted outreach within the neighborhood and obtained signatures indicating support for our project from our neighbors Julia De Leon at 1330, located adjacent to our property, and the proposed garage, as well as a letter of endorsement on March 7th. Additionally, we received endorsements from residents at 1322, Johnny, 1323, Mary, 1334, Pilar, 1342, Samantha, 4921, the Pattersons, and 4925, Ben. The residents of 1329 expressed uncertainty about signing as they are renters. Despite assuring them that their status as renters wouldn't affect their ability to participate, they seemed hesitant and scared to do so. We were unable to reach anyone at 1318 since the owner recently passed away and that property is currently vacant. Likewise, at 4921, we made multiple attempts to reach out, including knocking on their door 3 times. And on March 9th, as mentioned earlier, we left a letter for them in the mailbox. A copy was provided earlier with our contact information, but we haven't received a response to this day. We firmly believe that our proposal aligns with the neighborhood's development and will adhere to all legal obligations set forth by the county. Furthermore, we are committed to minimizing any inconvenience to our neighbors and the surrounding community. We hope that you are in favor of such a project as we feel that it would add curb appeal and enhance the neighborhood aesthetic. We sincerely appreciate your time and consideration regarding our request. Thank you.
Thank you. Do my colleagues have questions for the applicant? Ms. Arthurs?
So the whole, like a third of your lot is not usable.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
That picture helps
Yeah.
tremendously.
We figured, like, looking at the plot, you can't really see
No.
what that retaining
Yeah,
wall.
you can't do anything with that.
No.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Anyone else? I just had a quick question about 1329. I assume that you tried to talk to the renters, or you did talk to the renters,
Yes.
but I assume you didn't try and talk to the actual owner?
The owner, they've rented that property for a very long time, and I don't, like, we kind of did a, I guess.
Yeah, we went on this site here
Yeah.
where you can pull up the owner's info and we have like there's another address listed there, like a Woodbridge address. We thought it'd be weird to just show up there. So we didn't want to
But
do
we didn't
that.
reach out.
Yeah, but we haven't reached out to the owners.
Mr. Bone,
The county would have notified them.
that's what I was about to ask. Mr. Bone, I assume that 1329 got a letter in the mail, but would that have gone to the actual homeowner if they're not living there?
Let me verify who that letter went to. Give me just a moment.
It's just that this is a very big project, and I was just a little concerned about that. I don't have a particular issue with anything that you're asking for. I don't want someone to complain after the fact, after you've started it and it's up, and then you run into problems.
I understand.
Absolutely.
Ms. Freshman, did you have anything else?
No, I just assumed that they sent it to the owner of record, not to the actual street address. Unless they're the same.
Let's hope.
Yeah, generally speaking, the letters would go to the owner at their whatever address they provided, but I will verify that it did go to that address.
Thank you.
Are you checking it right now?
Yes, and we do have a speaker for the case if you want to hear from them in the meantime.
I think it's it's the architect.
Architect.
Yeah, the speaker is our architect. We just wanted him available with
Okay.
any questions.
Yeah. And Mr. Kaplan, just to verify the address, is it 1329 South Columbus Street you're interested in?
1329, South Columbus, yes. The house directly across the street.
Blake, it did go to the address on file, not the actual address
Great.
behind the property.
Okay, thank you, Meg, for looking
You're
that up
welcome.
into that as well.
Thank you.
Which answer was it?
It went to the address on file, not the home.
For the owners, yeah. So it didn't go to the
Owner?
renters,
The
it went
owners.
to the owners.
Great.
I'm prepared to make
Ms.
a motion when
Arthurs.
everyone's done. I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals attach the adopt proposed resolution approving the use permit V-11919-23-UP-1-1, subject to the conditions listed.
Second.
A motion made by Ms. Arthurs, seconded by Ms. Malice. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Ms. Malice?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman?
Aye.
Ms. Clark? Ms. Arthurs?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion to grant this use permit passes 5-0. Good luck with this big project.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for your time.
Mr. Bowen, can you call the second case?
Yes, Mr. Kaplan, the second case on the agenda is case number V-11920-23-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Kimberly Sanchez on behalf of Benjamin and Wendy Shaw, the owners, to permit a rear yard of 14.5 feet instead of 21 feet as required regarding a new rear deck with stairs to an existing single-family dwelling in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 2037 North Utah Street within the Cherrydale Civic Association. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit request with conditions. Please note that we have 2 additional speakers who have signed up to speak on this case.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Any questions for staff on this? Is the applicant with us?
You look a little familiar.
Yeah. I'm Kimberly Sanchez with HD Exteriors.
Would you like to speak to the application?
Just if you have any questions.
Do my colleagues have questions for the applicant? The applicant's representative. Let's hear from the speakers. Mr. Meller? Come on down, please.
Good evening, members and associated staff. I appreciate the opportunity and the privilege to speak. I am the owner of the property catty corner directly behind the property that is requesting a variance. I've been a resident and
Could you give
homeowner.
your address?
This is 2032.
I'm at 2042. I'm not the owner of the property. I'm just speaking to appeal or to voice my concern about the variance. So I'm appealing the variance. I live behind the property.
So
I'm not the property owner.
where do you live?
I live catty corner behind at 2042 North Taylor Street. It's the street parallel to North Utah, which is in question.
Okay, I see it.
Thank you.
Should I state my concern then?
Yes, please.
Okay.
We're
right.
just trying to figure out
Sure, understood.
bearings. Yep.
So you can, if you look at the map, you can see my property. It's north, and you can see the 2042 and my lot. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, there it is. Perfect. You have the arrow right on it. I've been a resident and an owner of property in North Arlington for 38 years, 23 of which I have resided at 2042. Not that that should be so relevant, but just a little background. I've taken very good care of my property. I take a lot of pride in it. I take a lot of pride in being a good citizen of Arlington County and a good neighbor. And I want to continue being a good neighbor to all of my surrounding neighbors. The home that is in question here that is requesting the permit was owned by the folks that actually raised this home, a previous home that I believe was built in the 1940s, maybe middle 40s. They raised it and then built this new home, which I believe was completed for occupancy in the last 2 years. And I had, so it greatly enlarged the footprint of the home on that very small lot, which is approximately 1/5 of an acre, probably a little bit smaller. And so it came back a lot farther, as you can see. I don't know if that's an accurate depiction, actually. That's, I think, the older house that you're looking at on the map, but it's a lot larger now. And if I have photographs, if I may approach the bench, so to speak, and I am happy to show them to you, if that would be helpful to provide you some visuals.
If you could state what your objection is.
Yes, my objection is that since this is 2024, folks. The house wasn't originally built 50 years ago. If they had the intention of adding a deck, and I can see why they would. I think they're a young family. They have 2 younger children. And again, I want to be a good neighbor, but their builder, their architect, the homeowners should have taken that into consideration before they built the structure. So now it's built. You can look at the back door. They have vertical slats, so they had every intention of coming out that back door. It already has a 21-foot setback. I don't know if that includes the bay window that was added. And now they want to come back further to my property. My concern, and per what you said in the beginning of this hearing, was that If the addition or the variance causes an adverse or detrimental effect on the surrounding neighbors, which in my opinion it does because it encroaches upon my privacy, which I greatly value, and it also devalues my property, my largest investment, which I've worked so hard for, because I'm looking directly into the back of their house. And now if they build a deck and add on, it's going to come farther into my view. And with cookouts and so on going on in the summer, which is normal for people, I understand that. But I shouldn't have to bear the brunt of having to deal with my privacy being adversely and detrimentally affected. I think it's unfair, and especially because it was done in the last 2 years. We have codes. I've never been delinquent in any of my property taxes. I'm a good citizen. And do I have to bear the brunt of them deciding they want to put a deck, so it's 10 yards away? That's the first yard in a football game. I mean, a first down in a football game. They're going to be overlooking my yard, and I could show you the height.
Thank you.
So that's my argument, sir, and all due respect. And I feel very strongly, as you can probably tell by my tone, but it's very upsetting to me. And
you hand Mr. Goldberg your pictures?
I'm sorry, sir?
Can you hand Mr. Goldberg your pictures?
I'd be happy to.
But before you leave the podium, could you clarify, did you say you're the owner?
I am the owner, and I've been a resident there for 23 years.
At 2042?
Correct. And the property that's showing on your map is incorrect. That is not the footprint of their existing house. It was completed within the last 2 years. Why their architect, why their builder, why the homeowners?
Okay. So I just want to answer the question. But your property does not.
It's not an apartment. It's a house, single house.
It's a.
Yeah.
So I was a little confused when you were talking about renter.
Did I say renter? I'm sorry if I did.
Your owner.
I am the homeowner. Yes, ma'am. Completely.
All right.
The sole homeowner of that property.
Of 2042?
Yes, ma'am.
42.
Now, see, the red dot is where they're asking for the variance. The property behind it and north, if you will, slightly north, is 2042. And unlike the property directly behind it, I'm looking at a catty corner. There are trees there, so the people directly behind them aren't affected because there's an evergreen magnolia. I'm looking from my deck, from my upper floor, and from my kitchen directly into their house. And now they want to add, which is fine. They want to add a deck onto it.
Thank you. We understand. Mr. Bowen, do we have a second speaker?
We do, yes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
A second speaker is Patricia Polton.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm a homeowner and have lived on North Taylor Street for more than 40 years at 2016 North Taylor Street. I'm recommending that we do not allow the variance given the size of the current house at 2037, and adding a deck is going to come right up to the property line of 2042. In my opinion, when a homeowner builder is designing a house, they should consider at the outset whether there is sufficient space for an outside deck within the limitations of the building code. I expect that design at 2037 North Utah did not include a deck, given that the house and the placement of it on the property was not sufficient. If a deck was desired, it should have been part of the original plan and accommodated to change the design in order to accommodate the deck and not encroach on neighbors. All of us in Arlington pay a lot of taxes and want to ensure that our neighbors are not encroaching on our property and privacy. The building ordinances and rules are in place for a reason, and I think the 21 foot setback is not out of line. As noted, I urge the board to vote against the variance so it does not set a precedent in the neighborhood. Currently, I have a house that is being built behind me on Utah Street. They currently are not looking to build a deck because they're within 20 feet of my property line in the back. But I hope that if they decide to request a variance, they will research it and realize that the board has voted against the ordinance and a variance for the house being built up the street, or the house being added to the deck up the street.
Thank you.
Did you restate your address?
2016 North Taylor Street.
Okay.
And I'm right up the street from 2042 and about a half a block from the house that's currently asking for the variance on North Utah.
Thank you. Do my colleagues have any questions for the speaker?
I have one
Arthur.
comment. I think the definition of what an encroachment is a little off base here. An encroachment is when it's actually touching and going over. They're not touching anyone's property line by building their deck. So I think you guys just need to think about your wording, because that's not actually considered an encroachment.
Okay.
It's closer than you want it to be, but it's not an encroachment.
Perhaps not, but a couple of feet from a property line with a deck that's
It's
up and
still not an
still not
encroachment.
encroaching.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I apologize for the misuse of the
It's-
term.
People throw that word around like, and it's just not,
No, that
being used
wasn't,
properly.
that wasn't my intent.
I kind of wanted that for the record.
All right,
I don't have any more questions, and I'm prepared to make a motion if my colleagues are.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
I guess I have follow-up for staff when they're ready. 2032 North Taylor.
Ms. Mouse.
Mr. Bowen, I was looking at the rear setback comparisons. At 2032 North Taylor, which is across the street from this property, it says that the rear setback is 1 foot from, there's a structure 1 foot off the property line.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you're
can
talking about
answer
the,
that since it's my
okay.
staff report.
Mag.
I'm sorry.
For the 2032 North Taylor Street, I did find a garage that's oversized. So typically for the zoning district, they can have up to a footprint of like 560 square feet. This one's oversized, so it'd have to meet the same setbacks as a house would. So 25 feet from the building wall, 21 feet from the eave of the garage. But this one on the plat showed it being 1 foot away and well over 1,000 square feet in footprint.
I'm sorry. So there's only a 1 foot rear setback?
Correct, from the garage wall.
2032?
Yeah, from what was shown on the garage, yeah, on the plat.
Okay, and the plat is different than the tax map that we're looking at, right?
That's correct. When we pull up setbacks, we look at the actual plat because they can kind
So-
of vary on the GIS maps.
So across the street, there's a 1 foot setback in the back of that property. Okay. And then at 2036, it says there's a 15 foot, right? Next door.
Yeah, I was granted through a variance for a 15 foot for a new dwelling.
For new, and that variance was in 75?
Correct.
Okay. So there are 2 instances right across the street where the setbacks are similar to what's being requested. What I'm seeing anyway.
And those would technically require like a 25-foot setback for the building walls itself compared to like a deck that would require the 21-foot
They actually
setback.
required 25 instead of 21. Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay. So there are 2 precedents already on the street, so we're not creating a new precedent here.
Oh, I was looking on the other side of Utah. I see what you're talking about on 2032 North Taylor. I was looking at the wrong place. Now I see what you're talking about. Yeah, that's even more convincing in my mind.
Yeah, well, the standard for a use permit is compatibility.
Yeah,
And
I just was looking at the wrong lot.
so I don't see that this is setting a new precedent.
I am a little troubled with the picture of the builder when they built this house clearly ran out of footprint or not footprint's the wrong word, but setback room to build a deck, clearly with the intention that the homeowner would come to us in the future to put that in.
This isn't the.
It
first time we've
happens
seen that.
often.
Right. No,
Yeah.
it happens often, and
Yeah.
I'm a little troubled by that, but it still fits within, as Ms. Malice had said, it still fits within the
Precedent.
precedent,
Standard.
the standards, the use permit standards for compatibility with the neighborhood.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Malice.
we do draw a distinction. Had this been exactly the same property and they were asking for a variance because they were over coverage, then it's unlikely we would have supported it because a variance standard is very different than a use permit standard. And certainly we have not approved decks
For variance.
for variance purposes where they've built something, they've maxed out the lot size, lot coverage, and then they're coming in and asking for a deck, and we have not approved those. But this is different. This is a use
This is
permit.
a use permit.
It's placement, not, I assume that
And if
it meets coverage standards and everything.
Yeah, I just looked.
and if this were coming to us as a new build asking for the same thing, our standard would still be the same.
Exactly.
Right.
the same.
So I don't think the analysis would be any different because we didn't get this case 2 years ago when they leveled it.
That's correct.
And so I think that is kind of where I'm going.
So, since there's a precedent already in this neighborhood, I'm not troubled by supporting this proposal.
Would you like me to make a motion?
Please, I'm done unless anyone else has any further questions. Go ahead.
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals approve the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit V-11920-23-UP-1, subject to the conditions listed.
Second. Oops, sorry.
Is that Ms. Freshman? Motion made by Ms. Arthur, seconded by Ms. Freshman. Is there any further discussion? I got my discussion in. I will call the roll. Ms. Malice.
Aye.
Ms. Freshman.
Aye.
Ms. Clark.
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion to grant the use permit for this deck passes 5-0. Mr. Bowen, can you please call the next case?
Yes, Mr. Kaplan, the third case on the agenda this evening is case number V-11921-23-UP-2. This is a use permit request by Carter Jones on behalf of Marshall and Kate Koch, the owners, to permit a right side setback of 7.9 feet to the building wall instead of 10 feet to the building wall as required, and to permit an aggregate side yard setback of 13 feet instead of 18 feet as required regarding a right side addition and second story addition to an existing one family dwelling in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 741 North Buchanan Street within the Bluemont Civic Association. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit request with conditions. Please note that there is supplemental material for this case that came in after the application packets were assembled and printed. This is an email from the owner regarding their neighborhood outreach efforts. I will also make a disclosure that I am acquainted with Mr. Koch from college, and accordingly, my colleague, Miss Ryan, wrote this staff report and recommendation.
That's unusual.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very often.
Questions on this application for staff?
Yes, I have a question, and we won't hold that against him. Proposed change says the right side addition will measure 1.3 feet by 24. That's pretty unusual. Are we just evening something off that was, what's the reason for that?
I will defer to Miss Ryan to write that. I believe this is a very small scale addition on the right side. I believe there might be a pantry involved. Miss Ryan, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think they were expanding their kitchen by approximately 1.3 feet on the first floor, which can be seen on the proposed first floor plan.
Is that so
Now, the
that-
intentions, I would ask the applicant, I guess, defer to
Okay.
them, but based on the floor plans, they're expanding it by a width of 1.3 feet on the first floor plan.
Well, when I looked at the side, it looked like perhaps that was just bumping out so to make it even with whatever they're going to put on top. We'll
And
ask.
they were
the-
going to put a second story above that. Yeah, so expanding it by 1.3 feet and then putting a second story addition on top of that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing the 1.3. Is that?
Brett, do you care if I share my screen real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So here's the first floor plan, and the red is kind of showing that it's being bumped out on the first floor by 1.3 feet.
But the setback,
I can help clarify if that's helpful.
the setback is still 7.9.
It was 7.9, now it'll be 6.9. There's two lines on the plat, or there's two different measurements right
Well,
next to each other.
They're asking for a side setback of 7.9.
7.9 to the building wall, and 6.9 will be to the building eave.
Right, so where does the 1.3 come in?
That's the first floor wall being expanded out here. So
Just
they're
to
kind
match.
of bumping out the first floor and then gonna build a second story addition above it.
So they're not asking for any extra setback because if you look at the picture, the front half of the house already is out that 1.3 feet, and they want to match the back half to that same line. So the actual setback isn't changing. It's just being applied to the entire house instead of just the front half.
And there is a pantry wall that is closer on this right-hand side.
So you don't have to call that out as a change?
That was in the proposed conditions. But the existing wall is much closer at 5.1 feet. This little bump out right here for the pantry, that's already existing.
Okay. So here, can I ask a question?
Please.
Mr. Chairman? I was trying to figure out the relationship, the right side setback of 7.9 instead of 10, and then the aggregate is 13 instead of 18, and I couldn't figure out how the math worked on that. Because that's a difference of 5 versus a difference of a little over 2.
And I believe for the aggregate, Ms. Malice, we use the existing left side setback of 7.9 feet. And then on the right side, we have the pantry bump out of 5.1 feet. And both of those are the respective closest points of the left and right sides.
So you have to call out the aggregate.
Which we're including this 5.1, which is the closest point, which is an existing wall, and the 7.9 on this left side to get that combined 13 feet.
So you don't have to call it out as a change, but you have to include it in the aggregate.
We included the closest points and then called out the new wall that's getting bumped out back here to the 7.9 feet to the right-hand side property line.
Was the 2019 use permit built out? Do you know? I mean, I can ask the applicant, but
Yeah, I would defer to the applicant there.
He's nodding his head, yes.
okay.
Yes, it was.
It was built out, okay.
You probably approved that. 2019.
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah, I remember now. It's all coming back to me. You were there, right?
Is the applicant is online?
I am, and I
Yes,
also have
this
my-
is
Thank you.
this is Carter Jones. I'm the applicant and architect on the project. Marshall Koch is also here. He's the homeowner. We worked together on the first phase of their project. This is a second phase, which is, as I think everybody explained it pretty clearly, we're bumping the first floor out to line it up with the existing right side of the house, and then adding a second floor above that. So the reason for that small addition is really an alignment issue.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Just one. The letter that we received about Janice being out of town, what is the address on that one? Is that 1742?
I believe it's 742. She's the one catty corner
Catty
across the street in north. Yeah.
So that's
And we did. I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
742 North Buchanan.
Correct. And
The
we
one-
did drop a letter for her back in writing back in November, December. I never received a response, and then we reached out again and did not get a response.
What is everyone's pleasure?
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Ms. Malice?
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached proposed resolution granting use permit V-11921-23-UP-2, subject to the conditions listed.
Second.
A motion by Ms. Malice, seconded by Ms. Clark. Any further discussion? I will call the roll. Ms. Malice?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman? Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes 5-0. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bowen, can you please call the next case?
Yes, Mr. Kaplan, the next case on the agenda is case number V-11922-23-UP-1. This is a use permit request by George Stratman, the owner, to permit a rear setback of 19.4 feet to the proposed screen porch, 19.4 feet to the porch eave, instead of 21 feet to the screened porch, 19.5 feet to the porch eave as required, regarding a new rear screen porch to an existing one-family dwelling in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 2000 South Quebec Street within the Douglas Park Civic Association. Staff recommends that the board adopt the proposed resolution granting the use permit request with conditions. We do not have any speaker slips or supplemental materials for this case.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Do my colleagues have questions for staff? Is the applicant with us?
I'm Scott Sturl, I'm the architect. This is George Stratman. He's the owner.
Welcome.
Didn't really have anything to add to the excellent staff report, so I think that's all we. Any questions?
Any questions, Ms. Malice?
You couldn't have shaved off 1.5 feet and avoided this?
Well, one of the things that the report does point out that there is an existing deck there already at the same point. So we were just trying to maintain that level, just, enclose it as a screen porch and expand it a little bit so it's a little more usable. So, but you're right. But, so anyway.
Ms. Malice, did you notice the plat, how on one side it shows the proposed changes and the other side is the existing, and they're right there next to each other? Beautiful work.
It is. It's lovely. Spread the word through your community, okay? It'll save you time.
I'm prepared to make a motion if my colleagues are ready.
Yep. Please.
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals approve the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit V-11922-23-UP-1, subject to the conditions listed.
Second.
A motion made by Ms. Arthurs and seconded by Ms. Freshman. Any further discussion? I will call the roll. Ms. Malice?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion to grant this use permit passes 5-0. Good luck. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Bowen, can you please call the next case?
Yes, Mr. Kaplan, the next case on the agenda is case number V-11923-23-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Eric Orellana on behalf of McCroy and Boucher King, the owners, to permit a setback of 9.6 feet to the wall, 8.5 feet to the eave, 6.5 feet to the window well, and 9.5 feet to the porch, 8.5 to the porch eave, instead of 25 feet to the wall, 21 feet to the eave, 21 feet to the window well, and 21 feet to the porch, 19.5 feet to the porch eave, as required, all from South Kent Street right of way, and to permit a setback of 16.1 feet to the porch, 14.8 feet to the porch eave, instead of 21 feet to the porch, 19.5 feet to the porch eave, as required from the 21st Street right of way, regarding a new 2-story addition, a new front porch roof, and a new window well in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 1038 21st Street South, within the Arlington Ridge Civic Association. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit request with conditions. Please note that we have an additional speaker who signed up to speak on this case, and that's just one speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Questions on this application for staff?
I just have a question. I was I see the plat. I don't see a revised plat, and most of the pages in my package are unreadable because they seem to be so ginormous that you can't see more than a couple of lines and a couple of letters on those pages. So I don't know what they represent.
This sounds like an opportunity for us to potentially bring some plans on screen again to be
Like
helpful.
this, like somebody's already ahead of the game here.
This is what they look like.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This is like in 5 different.
Yeah, we had a number of applications in our packet that did not print correctly.
Interesting.
So if you view them online, they were fine.
It's
Just
pretty
for the
hard.
record.
Pretty
Yeah,
hard
I
to
went
value.
online and printed them off
Okay.
online.
I will make some inquiries into our printer settings for next month.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
So how do we want, there's the plat online.
Pretty large.
I have some questions for staff or Ms. Freshman, do you want to take some
Go ahead.
time to look at this? In the staff report, there was a note that said that the proposed rear expansions, some of the proposed rear expansions can be undertaken by right. Can you tell me which, because which one of those, what could have been done by right?
That's this portion over here, Miss Malice.
That portion.
Yep.
And is that what they asked for?
No, the request here is for this enclosing this to be a more rectangular shape, the window well, and they're adding a dormer on top of the porch. So it's as you're building above a non-conforming porch,
But
they're getting relief there.
so I'm asking in the referenced building permit, was it just that portion of it?
I believe so, and that portion would be able to be undertaken by right. And so I don't know the status of that building permit. I can check, but I believe that's in process right now.
So is this building permit that exists relevant at all to our case? Or do they need a new building permit?
I would defer to the applicants there, since we don't review, zoning division staff outside of the BZA team review the building permit applications for the by right portion. So I would defer to the applicant as to the status, and if needed, we can do a little bit of research to see what we can find in our permitting system.
So yeah, the question is, it's noted here, so I wondered since it was noted, I wondered if it was relevant or, because it looks like they need a different building permit to build this, and they need our approval before they can do that.
Yes, they could in theory, they could either submit a second building permit application for the work that the BZA may authorize, or they could theoretically amend their building permit to an active revision after a BZA hearing if the BZA approves it to add the portion of the work that the BZA may approve.
And then the note further says that the status is awaiting inspection. Does that mean that portion was already built?
No, not necessarily. It means that it could be awaiting issuance would mean that it's awaiting potentially a BZA approval before county staff signs off on the
This says
approval.
awaiting inspection.
I think,
It's inspection.
I think after the building permit is issued, it's awaiting inspection because that's the next step for a building permit. So like when I did my porch, I think it immediately turns into waiting inspection because
Until-
that's the next step. So the applicant
Oh,
can,
it doesn't mean it's built. It's
No,
just that's
and
the next
it
step.
could be built. We don't know, right?
Okay. All right.
I'm sure the applicant can speak to that.
And then, okay.
So, Mr. Goldberg, so we're here for that 2.7 foot in that corner?
Yeah,
the
the
rear?
2.7 foot, the window well over here.
Yeah.
And the porch.
In the porch, okay. So presumably construction has not started on those items,
Presumably, yes.
presumably. Ms. Arthurs?
I feel like it has on the side of the house, because didn't we see a picture with like a black building fence? Didn't you show us that? Don't change this though, this is good. This is beautiful.
Can I call the applicant up?
Yeah, yeah, we can figure it out.
The applicant, come on down, please. Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman, Board. Right.
I'm sorry, can you state your name?
My name is McCory King, and this is my
Thank
wife,
you.
Brushay King.
Thank you.
And our contractor, Eric Oriana.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I'll say, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today on behalf of our application.
Can you speak into the microphone?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Apologize about that. We are here requesting for the adding of a 2-story rear addition, a new window well, as well as a new front porch roof to a house that was built in the 1930s. So we're looking to modernize the house, but still maintain the bones, the charm, and the structure of the house as it relates to the neighborhood. We are currently renting in Arlington, have lived here for about 3 years now, and we have been looking to make Arlington our permanent home. So finding this house was a great opportunity for us to permanently be here and be amongst the Arlington community. We can have our contractor can speak to the questions that were posed for the staff, but we again thank you for the opportunity to hear our case, review our case, and hopefully work with you guys in the future on other things as permanent residents of Arlington. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully you don't have to work with us in the future.
Yeah, I know. It's been a while. And yes, so when we moved here 3 years ago, returning from Mexico, we wanted to have that same charm, be able to walk and feel in the neighborhood. And so living in Arlington off of Army Navy Drive, when this house came about, we were like, wow, this is it. And it just needs some work. And so we want to make it livable for us to grow a family in and make our home for years to come. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you. Ms. Malice.
Can you tell us what the status of construction is right now, or do you want your builder to answer that?
He can also answer, but we haven't started, so we've been waiting.
So nothing has been built yet?
No, we just got the permit like a week and a half ago, the first permit, so the by right permit.
The by right permit.
Correct.
But now you're going to change that.
Well, they instructed us to go in this process this way in order to be able to get the by right. So, but yes, we can make the amendment to it now that, well, depending on what the board says today.
So they instructed you to get the by right permit and then come to us to update it.
Correct.
Okay.
I feel like my contractor wanted to go ahead and get the building permit while we were waiting on BZA approval, and I was a little scared of it. So, yeah, you guys cut down a lot of foliage from Google Earth.
Yeah.
Lot.
Yeah. It was extremely overgrown, as well as invasive species in the area as well. So I want to make sure to clean that out, start fresh, and make sure that we have a beautiful lot for the neighborhood.
We don't like invasive species in Arlington.
Yes, and you can still see some of the foliage that's there where it's hanging, and it was literally pulling everything down. It's the little the plant with the purple flowers on it, but super invasive, as well as bamboo. So it was, yes. All of which on the land and zoning are illegal to have in Arlington. They're forbidden plants. So.
Any further, Ms. Malice?
Yeah, you are missing a couple of neighbors. The people that live across the street from you.
Yes. So
21st Street.
Right on the cross street are two retired Army, but we wouldn't able to get them during the time. I did have a speak with him, and he's just ready for work to begin. And then across, Mr. Bill is directly across. We knocked on his door about 5 times, and no answer. But other than that, we have about 15 signatures because we went all over.
And I think we have a speaker, Mr. Bowen. Do we have a speaker for this one?
We do not have a speaker.
No, we didn't. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Nope,
Yeah, we do have one speaker. My mistake. I was looking at the last case. We do have one speaker.
Why don't we hear from Mr. Duffield and then we can go from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Mr. Duffield online or in the room?
Mr. Duffield does not appear to be online.
Maybe we don't have a speaker.
I'm prepared to make a motion if my colleagues are ready.
Any discussion with the board? Or motion?
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals approve the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit B-11923-23-UP-1, subject to the conditions listed.
Second.
A motion made by Ms. Arthurs and seconded by Ms. Clark for approval. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Ms. Malice.
Aye.
Ms. Freshman.
Aye.
Ms. Clark,
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion to grant this use permit passes 5-0.
Enjoy.
Mr. Bowen, can you please call the next case?
Yes, Mr. Kaplan. The next case on the agenda is case number V-11924-23-UP-2. This is a use permit request by Stacy Meyer and Stephen Paczynski, the owners, to permit a street setback of 15.6 feet to the addition wall, 14.6 feet to the eaves, instead of 25 feet to the addition wall, 21 feet to the addition eaves, as required from 24th Street North, and to permit a new fence height of 7 feet instead of 4 feet as required, regarding a new fence and new attached garage with addition above to an existing one-family dwelling in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 722 24th Street South within the Aurora Highlands Civic Association. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution and granting the use permit request with conditions. At this time, we do not have any supplemental materials nor any speakers who have signed up to speak on this case.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Do we have questions for staff?
Just a quick question. It was in the letter that the applicants wrote. It says, because the line of the existing house is within the street right of way, we are required to obtain a use permit to align the addition with the house. That's not necessarily true. They could have made that addition anywhere, right?
Anywhere that, if they would like to align it with the front of the house, which does not conform to zoning ordinance requirements, a BZA use permit would be required. But in theory, if they propose an addition that was set back at least 25 feet from the street, or 21 feet to a porch, something like that, that met the by right regulations, then the BZA might not be necessary for the project.
Right. They had an option.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Freshman.
Once again, I have a plat, but it doesn't show the improvements because the rest of the pages are messed up. So if you can bring that up so I can see what we're talking about.
We will certainly bring that up.
Particularly because of the height of the fence. Oh, yay. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bowen, that was one of my questions, the fence. Normally when someone's asking for a fence, we see some fence compatibility statistics, but I don't think I saw that in this report.
Yeah, in this instance, the fence was set back with the building wall. And so it was treated similarly to other building walls. Many times fences are positioned right on the lot line, 0 feet from the street or a few feet back. In this instance, it was set back several feet in line with the building wall. So it seemed fair to compare it to other building wall examples.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to let you know I was here. This is Stacy Meyer, in case there are questions.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't realize I needed to sign up to speak.
No, as the applicant, you don't need to sign up to speak. We will get to you shortly.
Okay. Oh, sorry about that. If
No
you
worries.
have questions, I'm here.
Thank you. So staff's position is that the fence is compatible because it is in line with the building wall.
Yeah, it has the same setback as the building wall, so we treated it similarly to a building wall in
To a
this
building
case.
instead of a fence.
So it doesn't extend closer to the street than the building itself.
Yeah, generally speaking, I would be more apt to provide other fence examples where the fence, 0 feet from the street, 1 foot from the street, something along those lines.
Oh, but it'd be hard to find something compatible because it wouldn't. Okay, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
it's usually a little bit of a harder search to find compatible fence examples.
Okay.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman,
Ms. Malice.
I'll just mention do they require getting a fence permit?
Fences can be included in the building permit application. They can also file separately for a fence permit application. So I would defer to the applicant on their preference in that regard.
Okay, I'll just point out that I think the rationale that was in the applicant's letter was to conceal trash receptacles. My trash receptacles fit behind a 4-foot fence fine. So it's not necessary if that's the shielding is the rationale.
Thank you, Ms. Malice. Okay, the applicant, whom I know is here because we heard from her. Would you like to speak to your application?
Hi, yes, thank you for the opportunity. I apologize I'm not there in person. I appreciate the opportunity to do this virtually. So we have a couple of other issues with the fence. One is we have a pool in the backyard and we want to keep a high fence because we're across from a children's park. So that is another reason. I'm not sure we put that in there or not. The other and third, there's architecturally the way we've designed the front of the house, that we have an eave that extends over, and this fence would architecturally meet the eave. So having it lower would kind of change the look. And that's sort of a traditional look for this neighborhood. House is from 1927, where you have where a roof will come quite low on the eave, 7 feet, and then meet a fence. So we're trying to use that as a example for our detailing. Does
Thank you.
that make sense? And you can look at the elevation, you can see what we're doing, if that helps.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Malice.
So what is the fencing requirement for a pool? Or is that a question for staff?
Fence requirements for pools are not largely regulated by zoning. They are looked at by ISD, so I can't speak specifically to.
Do you know what?
Is the pool existing?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So presumably that would be already a requirement.
That's why I'm trying to figure out what the
Understood.
requirement is.
Thank you.
What is the height of the rest of the fence around your property?
I think it's 6.5 feet. We would be okay with 6.5 feet, but it wouldn't look as good architecturally. I would draw your attention to the elevations that were included in the package.
Fortunately, we don't have elevations.
The sizing isn't good on them, so it's kind of hard to see in the packet.
We will bring them up on screen. Mr. Goldberg, are you able to do that?
So what you see there on the left-hand side is the eave coming down and meeting the fence. So it's, wrapping over the fence and then the fence going back into the distance. But that's where, we want the door to sort of hit underneath it.
Is that door attached to the eave or?
No, it would not be attached. It's a fence, so it wouldn't be attached to the eave. It would meet it. It would be underneath it. It's drop down 6 inches, something like that.
Thank you. Discussion with the board.
I can make a motion if Ray's ready.
I'm a little uncomfortable with this fence
Me too.
because as you go down the neighborhood, there are no 7-foot fences anywhere. Right. And so I'm not sure I'm comfortable just accepting that it's like in line with the wall. So it's compatible. But that's just kind of my opinion.
So
I'm stuck on the compatibility for the fence in the neighborhood.
May I add, or do you?
I'm sorry, discussions with the board. If a board
Okay.
member has a question, they're free to ask.
All right. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Malice.
Yeah, I am too in terms of setting precedents. But I assume that they have to have a fence there for the pool. That's 6.5, if the applicant is correct, that they required a 6.5 pool there. There's no other, well, let me ask, is there another fence between that gate and the pool?
You're talking to me? There is not, currently there is, but we'll be, when we're renovating it, it won't be there. So we have to replace it.
And what's the height of the current fence?
I measured it after I set the application in, and it's not quite 7 feet, it's 6.5 feet with the little lattices on top.
So there needs to be a fence there, but I'm not sure that it's our business to get into building permit ISD fences for pools. So I would be comfortable with approving a 4-foot fence. And if ISD says they need a bigger fence for the pool.
The fence can just be a by right fence, and that's between the applicant and ISD.
Right.
So I'm not sure we need to address the fence. That would be where I don't know where my colleagues are, but that's kind of my thought.
We don't have to. We can just omit the fence from the approval, and then they can work it out with ISD in terms of the size.
But I don't know where my colleagues are on that, but I would tend to
Mr.
disfavor the fence. Miss Freshman.
There is a pool that is now protected by a 6.5-foot fence, as I understand it. And with this renovation, they're removing that fence and moving it to align with the addition and adding maybe 6 inches. That's what it sounds like. I don't see why if we ignore that part of the request, that's going to require them to do a separate action to get a pool acceptable fence.
I mean, we don't know. We don't know that fence is permitted, right? I mean, they could have put up a 20-foot fence and it's been there, but that doesn't mean we should approve that based on compatibility.
I'm going to be honest, I don't see that this is anything that's absolutely egregious. I have no problem with it and I support the application.
Yeah, I think it's compatible with the project visually, and I also think that as it is replacing a pool fence now, you're just essentially moving the pool fence closer to the street and aligning it with the addition. To me, that is not an issue.
Mr. Chairman, I just would like to, I would like to make a motion that I presume will fail to remove the fence from the application, just for the record. Because I don't think we're in the business of granting pool fences. That's not within zoning, as Mr. Bowen pointed out. So my motion is to remove the 7-foot fence from the application. And if I get a second, we can vote on it. And then if I fail, then we just go on with the regular motion.
Okay, Miss Malice.
That's my motion. I move to remove the.
And I will second that.
Okay, and then we can discuss it and vote on it, and then vote on the whole package one way or the other.
Can I make one comment?
Sure.
I don't believe that they asked us to vote on the pool fence. They asked us to vote on the fence.
They asked us to vote on a 7-foot fence.
Right, but not the pool aspect of it, and guarding the pool aspect of it is not what we're here to do. She mentioned it on the phone, but the application didn't say anything about protecting the pool or for those regulations.
But she just said that's what she wanted the fence for, was the pool. So that's what I'm.
Well, and to go in line with the building, but that's not part of the application.
But a 7-foot.
Application doesn't mention anything about the pool.
Right.
At all.
I think Miss Malice's motion is to just remove the request for the 7-foot high fence instead of the 4-foot as required.
I'm sorry, I thought she was saying I wanted to remove it because we can't have anything to do with pool fences. So I misunderstood your motion then.
It doesn't matter why I moved it, if you know.
Okay. Well, I thought you were very adamant about saying that we can't.
Well, I'm not saying, I don't think we are in the business of pool fences. I think that's for building permit people. And so.
My point was just to simply say that as a practical matter, we understand that they're essentially going to have that as required. It may not be our purview, but as a practical matter, they're asking for that fence in part because they have a pool. I understand. I think I understand what you're saying, but I don't see any reason to remove the fence from this issue and then have them have to start all over again when we know the reason they have requested a fence that is taller than is normal.
And I am also not, there's nothing in front of us that has a requirement for a greater than 4-foot fence because there's a pool, right? That's not in the record before us. We don't know that. And then I worry, or not worry, but I'm concerned that then, anyone else in this neighborhood can then come and say, well, there's a 7-foot fence here, so I want my 7-foot fence. And it becomes a precedent in this neighborhood. So any further discussion? I will call the roll. Miss Malice.
Aye.
Ms. Freshman.
No.
Miss Clark.
Aye.
Miss Arthurs.
No.
Chair votes aye. Motion
To remove
the fence from the proposed staff motion passes 3-2.
So does the application pass with
We
that?
need another motion.
No, we just removed the fence from the application. So now we can vote
Now
on
we move
the rest of it.
on the amended.
And I'm happy to make that motion.
Ms. Malice.
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached proposed resolution granting use permit V-11924-23-UP-2 with conditions, but removing from the resolution the statement to permit a new fence height of 7 feet instead of 4 feet as required. And in the resolution number 1, condition number 1, to remove from the architectural drawings reference the 7-foot fence.
Is there a second?
You said it's in option 1.
So in the resolution, in the first whereas, I'm removing the statement and to permit a new fence height of 7 feet instead of 4 feet. And then in the first condition, where it says the applicant agrees that the structure shall be constructed in accordance with the footprint shown on the survey and the architectural drawings attached to the staff report, I'm adding without reference to the 7-foot fence.
Question?
Ms.
In the
Freshman.
first whereas, where you deleted and to permit a new fence height of 7 feet instead of 4 feet is required regarding a new fence. Are you deleting that?
I guess I can take that part out to the RE new fence. The new fence can be 4 feet. I don't have a problem with having them put in a 4-foot fence.
Or any
fence
that the county.
So I'm not objecting to a fence going there. I'm just saying it's not going to be 7 feet. It'll be a 4-foot fence.
Just silent to it, right?
I'll second.
A motion made by Ms. Malice, seconded by Ms. Clark. Is there any further discussion?
I would just like to state for the record again, I will support the motion because I don't want to hold up the project. But I think the whole rationale for deleting the 7-foot fence is unnecessary at the least.
I agree. I think it's pretty ridiculous, but I'm also not going to hold up this application. This is just nitpicking and silly.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I will call the roll. Ms. Malice. Ms. Freshman.
Aye.
Ms. Clark.
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion to grant this amended application passes 5-0. Mr. Bowen, can you please call the next case?
Yes, Mr. Kaplan, just a moment. All right, the next case on our agenda is case number V-11925-23-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Ron Miserak on behalf of Rada Zulal and Veronica Kazkor, the owners, to permit a street setback of 22.2 feet to the addition wall instead of 25 feet to the addition wall as required from 4th Street North, regarding a front addition and a new porch to an existing one-family dwelling in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 5931 4th Street North within the Boulevard Manor Civic Association. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit request with conditions. At this time, we do not have any supplemental materials nor any speakers who have signed up to speak for this case.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Any questions for staff?
I don't have a question, but I really like the project and I think the neighborhood outreach is excellent.
I will second that.
I'll third it.
Is the applicant with us?
Somebody?
Yes, I'm available virtually.
Would you like to speak to your application?
The only comment I'll make is that the homeowners were inspired by a porch similar to theirs down the street, which has a foyer and airlock into the porch, and they really liked it. And that porch and foyer was built prior to the zoning. So they are building the second floor addition by right and the front porch by right, and then asked if they could increase the size of their foyer. And I replied it was possible, but it would mean going in front of the BZA.
I feel your pain.
Sorry.
State law, not our fault. Don't hold it against us. Any questions for the applicant? Motions?
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Mellis.
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals grant the attached proposed resolution approving use permit B-11925-23-UP-1 subject to the conditions in the staff report.
Second.
A motion by Ms. Mellis, seconded by Ms. Freshman. Any further discussion for passage of the proposed resolution? I will call the roll. Ms. Mellis.
Aye.
Ms. Freshman.
Aye.
Ms. Clark.
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. This application passes 5-0. Mr. Bowen, can you please call the next case?
For your time.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Kaplan, the next case on the agenda is case number V-11926-24-UP-1. This is a use permit request by John Fernandez on behalf of Michael and Vanessa Gardner, the owners, to permit a right side setback of 3.5 feet to the garage wall, 1.5 feet to the garage eave, instead of 10 feet to the garage wall, 6 feet to the garage eave as required, regarding an after-the-fact approval for a new two-story detached garage with a footprint of 672 square feet to an existing one-family dwelling in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 136 North Irving Street within the Ashton Heights Civic Association. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit request with conditions. Please note that we do have additional supplemental material for this case, and that is in the form of an email of support regarding the neighborhood outreach efforts and a petition of support signed by 8 neighbors.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Question for staff on this application? Ms. Mellis.
So I'm looking at the before and after plat. Is there, and I'm trying to figure out which, I think I see a before.
There isn't an after.
And then I see something that looks about the same that just has some dashed lines around it. Is that the after?
Yes, correct. In this instance, the applicants used the foundations of an existing garage and built a new garage atop those foundations with a slightly taller height, which made it a 2-story building based on the dormer design instead of a 1-story. So the footprint looks very similar. The proposed plat does show the eaves in a dashed line, I believe.
So the building wall is the same as it was, and it's just got eaves on it now that weren't there before?
Yeah, we'll defer to the applicant on the existing conditions because insofar as when it was submitted to us, the existing garage had already been demolished.
I'm not ready for
I'm
the.
sorry.
Hold on. There was a photo that was very helpful that showed.
Can we go back to that photo?
Yeah.
I totally missed it.
There. So that at least shows us what is actually going up, presumably in the same spot.
So there's a building permit, right?
Correct. A building permit application
It has not been issued.
has not been issued.
But it's an after the fact approval.
Correct.
So this was built without a building permit?
Correct. Without an issued building permit. I believe the applicant may be able to speak to the history here. There was a force majeure. I believe there was a tree fell on the previous garage, and I believe there was a belief that the garage could be reconstructed atop the existing footprint, possibly without a building permit. And then now retroactively, they're seeking approval of the BZA use permit to grant the setback modifications that would allow the building permit to be issued.
But they're building more than what existed.
Correct. The height is now judged to be 2 stories rather than 1.5 stories.
So they thought they could rebuild it under force majeure, but just build it taller?
With a little bit of a height change, correct. But I will defer to the applicant if there's any details there that need a little bit more explanation.
So the garage, so what you see there is pretty much the garage the way it was. If you, I didn't get the picture, but I think on an elevation it shows us there's 2 dormers that pop up. That's the area that we added on. And it's a half a story that we added on, not the full story.
But you had no building permit.
At the time, we felt that we were gonna be able to get the building permit, so we submitted for the building permit and obviously there's 2, just to speak to that, there's 2, he rents the house out and there's 2 toddlers there. So we were trying to get the construction, obviously the tree fell down on the house and we tried to take all the debris away and continued in hopes that we'd have the permit to continue to finalize it.
So, the
intent was to have the building permit.
But you just didn't wait you willfully started without
Exactly.
a building permit.
Yes, ma'am.
For safety.
That's correct.
Could, for the record, could you identify yourself?
Oh, my name is John Fernandez. I'm representing Mike Gardner.
Thank you.
Do you want to speak more to the application, or was that, because I think you.
I mean, that's the major thing. I mean, we didn't make it any bigger. We followed this exact footprint. Obviously, when we submitted the permit, we found out, from their comments that either we could build exactly what was there, or if we wanted to add the half level, that we would have to submit it in front of the BZA because of the square footage was bigger than what's allowable now. This garage was built back in 1999, the original garage, before it got hit by the tree.
Did not last very long.
Yeah.
Mr. Bowen, is that correct that if he had built exactly what was there, he wouldn't have needed a building permit?
No, I would have needed the building permit.
I'm sorry, I was asking Mr. Bowen.
I feel like.
Yeah, so Article 16 of the zoning ordinance governing nonconformities would allow the rebuilding of the existing building as it was. It would still require a building permit though, but not necessarily BZA relief.
Right, but it would require a building permit. Everything requires a building permit.
Yes, ma'am.
Discussion with the board or motions?
I can make a motion, but I think people have reservations, so I'll just wait. Oh, yeah, do it.
Are you ready, Ms. Malice?
Looking for the applicant's letter, but I can't now find it in the package. Letter. Okay, here, I found it. Oh, I know. I've just made a note that there was just a difference in square footage in what your letter was requesting and what the application was talking about. But that's just a math thing.
It probably is. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I think we're ready.
I scrolled. Hold on. I scrolled too far. I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals approve the attached proposed resolution approving the use permit B-11926-24-UP-1, subject to the conditions listed.
Second.
A motion made by Ms. Arthurs and seconded by Ms. Freshman for passage. Is there any further discussion? I will call the roll. Ms. Malice.
Aye.
Ms. Freshman.
Aye.
Ms. Clark.
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion to grant this application passes 5-0. Good luck with this new garage.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Hopefully it lasts longer than the last one. Mr. Bowen, can you please call the last case, I believe?
Yes, Mr. Kaplan, we have reached the last case on the agenda, and that is case number V-11927-24-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Step Up Associates LLC, the owner, to permit a street setback of 14.3 feet to the building wall, 13 feet to the building eave instead of 25 feet to the building wall, 21 feet to the building eave as required from South Joy Street, to permit a street setback of 11.1 feet to the stoop eave instead of 21 feet to the stoop eave as required from South Joy Street, to permit a right side setback of 5.9 feet to the building wall instead of 8 feet to the building wall as required, to permit a rear setback of 5 feet to the building wall, 5 feet to the building eave instead of 25 feet to the building wall, 21 feet to the building eave as required, and to permit a building separation of 7.6 feet instead of 8 feet as required regarding an after-the-fact approval for a new rear detached garage and a new one-family dwelling in the R5 zoning district on the premises known as 2007 South Joy Street within the Aurora Highlands Civic Association. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit request with conditions. Please note that we do have supplemental material for this case. This includes 2 signed letters from neighbors, 2 BZA comments forms expressing objections to the project, as well as a letter of opposition from another neighbor.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Questions for Steph? Ms. Freshman had a quick hand up there.
Yes. I have questions that will be among comments, I guess I would say. I'm referring first to the letter from Mr. Jacoby from Aurora, referring to the fact that the site had a old single-family home and a building permit was issued for alterations and a garage, and then subsequently was completely demolished. So I have a question first about the process for getting a building permit for a new dwelling where the old dwelling has been demolished and using the existing foundation. And my question in part is because most of the reason we're here is because so much of Arlington was built before the zoning ordinance. And so the demolition of an existing home could easily provide a foundation for that doesn't conform to the zoning ordinance. So I guess my first question is there any kind of a review before a building permit is issued? Or in this case, if they had a building permit for modifications and then decided to demolish it, was there any permit issued for this structure, which is substantially complete and has a lot of variations from setbacks, a lot. And if so, is a structure like this constructed on an old foundation and gets to the point where we are now, where my guess is most of the parties involved are loath to say, this is not a legal house and you need to take it down. So I guess I'm concerned about the precedent, given how many sites this could apply to. It's one thing if a house is demolished and the foundation is removed, and then you start from scratch. And as most of you know, I'm usually not very sympathetic to someone coming in and automatically asking for exceptions rather than saying, you have an empty lot, you know where you can build. Don't come and ask for an exception right out of the gate. So I'm concerned about the precedent, but I'm also concerned about how we got here, given what the neighbor has said about the sequence of events. Now, maybe only the applicant can answer that, but I do think I'm concerned because we have in other instances had situations where we get confused about building permits. When are they issued and how good are they? And at what point is the flag raised that there's a problem? To me, it should be the minute they walk in the door. So they don't start a project until they've come to BZA, or they have an opportunity to revise their project so they don't have to come to BZA. But I'm concerned that we've had enough issues with the question of the timing of building permits, and if it's a building permit or a permanent permit, and they can't get the permanent permit until they come to BZA, but maybe it's already been constructed. As I said, I have questions, hidden within comments. But this is, I have driven by this site many times. It's very close to where I live. And it is grossly out of proportion and too close to the street, even though it's a small house, because it's a small lot. And when I realized that this application was the same house that I had noticed many, many times, I suspected that there was going to be some discussion about it. So I will leave it at that. But my concern is, when does somebody look at a project for compatibility with the zoning ordinance? Or that's part of it. If you can figure out even where I am.
Yeah, I think a pretty critical juncture in this project happened, Ms. Freshman, in that a building permit, I believe, was issued, and it was not, the building was not built in accordance with the building permit, but I would defer to the applicant for the specifics. As it came to the BZA team, it was presented as a project that was not built according to the building permit.
Well,
But according to the neighbor, that was because at least the building permit they were aware of was for modifications to the existing, and then it was demolished. And
Correct.
then apparently something was built. And I'm not sure anybody looked at it or knew what was going on with it.
Correct. I believe the original building permit was for a modification, and as it stands now, as it did stand, all the walls were demolished. At which point this became, in the minds of ISD, who ultimately issues building permits, I believe a new one-family detached dwelling as opposed to a renovation of an existing one-family detached dwelling.
But in so doing, they've built a house that is non-conforming, and I don't have any problem at all saying no to that. But my guess is that that's a really difficult call. I'm just surprised that the staff would recommend it, because I can see it causing problems in many neighborhoods.
I see Mr. Rissy has his hand up.
I do. I thought I may be able to talk to some of Ms. Freshman's concerns. When plans come in for a building permit, they are reviewed by zoning all the time before a building permit is issued. In cases like this, and I've actually can share a drawing from the building permit, what was shown to staff, no, I can't share. Oh, I'm not a presenter, I can't share. What was shown to staff and what was approved was a drawing that showed that the existing walls of the structure were supposed to remain. And so if they leave the existing walls, then they can build up. There's an allowance for that in the zoning ordinance. But what they can't do is replace non-conforming walls. And this is something that the BZA should be familiar with. This has happened a number of times. People say they're going to keep the existing walls right where they are, and they're going to do renovations inside the house, maybe go up. But what happens is during construction, they discover, for any number of different reasons, that the walls they don't think can remain. And so they end up tearing them down in the field. And typically what happens is the inspectors who go out in the field say, hey, the plan said these walls were supposed to remain, and now they're gone. And that's when the applicants are told that they'll need to go to the BZA for relief if they want to build back the new walls where the old walls were before. Does that process?
Yes, I understand. And I know we've had that before with termites and other kinds of issues. And as far as you went, that makes perfect sense to me. What doesn't make sense to me is that after they removed the walls, they built a whole house. Now, where was anybody to say what you said, which is no, you can't do that. Now that you've removed the walls, you're no longer just renovating or whatever, or you've discovered that they're too weak to put a second story on, whatever your desire is. But in this case, it appears that there was nobody policing or nobody trying to make sure that it was legal, and in the process saying, if you're starting from scratch, then here are all the problems with the setbacks, including being extremely close to the street compared to the others.
Yeah, I'll say I don't know exactly where staff was when that was occurring, but I will say it can be really hard for the inspectors who are out in the field to be familiar enough with the plans to understand when they're seeing walls out where the walls were before, that the existing walls were not allowed to be removed. That can be just a tricky thing for them to kind of see the detail on. They're generally looking to make sure that, the building is being built according to the approved building permit and according to, ISD, the building code requirements. So they're looking to make sure, the headers and foundations are being built adequately. It's not always the case that they're, looking at what was existing and what's new, if that makes sense.
Okay, well, I guess I just feel as if there's a glaring problem with somewhere. And I understand what you're saying about the inspectors in the field, but I could go by there and notice that there was a house being built instead of remodeling the existing. I mean, okay, thank you.
Mr. Chan.
Ms. Malice.
I just want to speak in support of what Ms. Freshman is saying. We have had cases where contractors, owners unwittingly removed walls. Somebody told them right away, and they came to be, it was basically like a stop work order. I mean, I don't know if that was legally a stop work, but they were immediately told, you have to come to BZA. And of course, they were very sad and upset because they really, couldn't, and there were cases where we denied the application because it was just the circumstances had changed so much that building what they were proposing was inappropriate. So I don't know the circumstances of this, but it also bothers me that, nowhere in the staff report was this demolition permit mentioned.
It's in Mr. Jacoby's letter.
Just in the letter.
Right.
And it seems like that's a key fact that wasn't in the staff report, that there was actually a demolition permit issued. And I'm just going by what this, neighbor is saying. Is this question for Mr. Bowen? Is this true that there was a demolition permit issued?
I'll be happy to look into that right now.
Okay, and it also troubled that, when I read the applicant's statement, none of that is in the applicant's statement either, that, it just says we lifted the walls. It doesn't say we demolished the house.
Perhaps the applicant can shed some light.
Well, I'm asking
Sure.
questions for, and then this is another question for staff. In the applicant's letter to the neighbors, it talks about the only additional relief we are seeking is for the eaves on the first floor.
That was my question as well.
And where is that in the summary of request?
They also made it sound like it was just this little bitty thing that they were asking for, and their application is considerable. It didn't seem like it was just 8 inches.
Yes, and so my final question is, this is one of those cases where our staff report is kind of blown up, but I did not see a certified plat in the staff report. If you can show me
It
where.
is page 13 online.
Show me what it looks like.
And then I had a question about the plat too.
I will confirm that we do see.
Go up on that.
It's certified.
So can you just go, I want to see the seal.
It's at the bottom.
See, that is not a survey seal.
What do you mean?
It says it's a use permit plat. The boundary information shown here is from records and does not constitute the boundary. It's being called a use permit plat. And that's why I just wondered if that, usually a surveyor seal is a little bit different. So if that's what, is that what you were going with as a certified plat? Because I don't see that as a survey.
I would consider that as, I read surveys all day long. I would consider that a certified plat.
Because the other ones always say land survey on the, that it was a survey. And these notes made me wonder if these were accurate representations of boundaries, since boundaries are part of the problem here.
We did treat that plat as a certified survey plat, yes. And to answer your earlier question, I do see evidence that of 2 demolition permits that were filed, one is listed as expired and the second is listed as final.
Could you give me the dates on those?
Yes, we have demo permit DEMO 23-00076, which was created on May 17th, 2023. And then we have demo DEMO 23-00074, which is listed as finalized and was created on May 15th, 2023.
I think it's called, is it called a wall check? That's when we've had in the past, people have come to us. And so there had to have been a wall check.
We don't have, so that was, I was gonna ask a question with the survey. This survey, if we assume it's a survey, and I see Ms. Malice's point there, because it's an engineer, not a survey.
Yeah, surveyors are engineers.
Are they?
Yes.
This is outside of my wheelhouse. So I'm assuming that this plot is what the applicant is currently asking for. We don't have the wall check plat in front of us or a pre-existing plat,
Yeah.
right? Where those foundation walls used to be, which I think would be helpful to this board to have that, which we
agree.
don't.
I agree.
I agree, but it does say that they built it on the same foundation.
Well, it would be nice to
And the
verify.
the little blob on the tax map is small and close to the street. So when you see the actual building, it looks like that's where it is.
Right. So if it's true that this house was built on the original foundation, because it's unclear to me if that foundation still exists right now today or not, right? Because we have a letter that says it's not. I don't know, but let's assume it is. Then the very minor encroachment from existing condition is for the wall sheathing, siding, and eaves. Is that an accurate statement?
It's certainly a larger building than was there before, and compared to the existing.
When you say how large, what do you mean by when you say large? What does that mean?
In terms of height.
In terms of height.
Yes.
Right, but non-conforming is allowed to go up in height over existing foundation. Right.
Generally speaking, not over a non-conforming porch, not over a non-conforming
Right.
garage, but over other non-conforming building walls.
Right.
Yes.
So if we assume that applies here, and if we assume the foundation has been untouched, then we are here today for eaves and a little bit of siding.
And there's also
Not the garage.
Garage.
We'll talk about the
separate
garage
too.
separately, right?
Yeah.
But for the house, is that if those assumptions are all true, is that an accurate statement? That there's nothing, we're not going 5 feet over because we wanted to make this bigger.
I want to see the
It's a place
original
that-
condition. There must have been a survey submitted with the original building permit. I'd like to see that.
The original?
The one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Theoretically, yes, yeah, and then I think that was my struggle in reading this plan, is that I had trouble figuring out what the actual ask was because we don't have the existing conditions.
I think also one of the issues that we raised is that if you're building an existing foundation, and the setbacks are egregiously different from what's allowed, then
And that's what I want to, yeah, so the applicant, I'm sure, is itching
So-
to speak. But that's my first question for the applicant, I have at least is, is this the original foundation, right?
So
I know it's a very small lot, but even so, it would seem to me that official permission would be required first,
Yeah.
not after the fact.
Assuming the foundation was demolished.
Well,
We don't know that yet.
it's not entire. So the way the ordinance works is if you take those walls down, you start at ground zero and
Yeah,
have
and
to
that-
ask for
I think that
permission.
we need to figure out if that happened. We don't know that yet. I think
Well,
that's a question, in my mind, that's a question mark.
If it was demolished,
Right.
even if the foundation is there, if the walls were taken down, it's considered ground zero.
I thought if you take the walls down to foundation, you're allowed to build over the foundation.
No,
Is that,
not non-conforming. That's the issue.
We would have to consider it generally speaking, because, there can be, different properties, different projects have, details that can matter. But generally speaking, I would say the wall would need to be at least considered a story to be built over.
okay, thank you. That was my misunderstanding. So I got, so you have to leave a story to build over, not just the foundation.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So, okay.
That's why
so
I-
taking it down to the foundation.
Requires a.
Ground
permit.
zero. is-
Okay.
Ground zero inch.
They have to
Right.
get all the setbacks.
So we should have been
approved.
back, here shortly after demolition or before demolition. Okay,
And looking at all the setbacks.
Yeah, left back.
And compatibility with all the setbacks.
all the setbacks.
That's exactly.
Correct, okay. Are we ready for the applicant?
Yes.
Please, I know you're itching here probably to be heard.
Good evening. My name is Mohan Sunkara. I'm the owner of this property. I'm hearing the comments. So
I'm sorry, Mr. Brown, can you put up a picture of the site while the applicant is speaking?
A photograph of the site?
Whatever you have in your.
Yeah. Mr. Goldberg, can you scroll to?
That, yeah, any one of those, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We did submit a wall check plat and also a before and after plat. It was, the previous one also was the same surveyor, second survey. We have both the ones that we submitted. Now I'm seeing that you don't have that with you, but if I can just pass these.
Can you
two.
hand that to Mr. Goldberg, please?
Be great.
So before and after. So we finished our different inspections, right? Plumbing inspection, wall checks, and sheathing and everything. So we failed at the wall check. That is when we were informed. I had told them that we had removed the wall because the foundation, we built it on the existing foundation, but and also we applied for a demo permit. So the plans were there on the site. The engineer decided to remove the wall because he said the foundation was on grade.
But your demo permit was originally going to leave the walls, the first floor walls?
I have a demo permit.
I'm just asking. A demo permit will typically speak to exactly what is being demoed.
Yeah.
So on the demo permit, were you raising the whole thing or were you leaving the first floor walls?
There was a combination.
Okay.
But we had to leave the front.
Can we get a copy of the demo permit?
Demo permit likely has many documents associated with it. Is there a particular document you were interested in seeing?
Just what was being demolished.
I'll take a look and see if I can pull that up.
So the engineer said because the building code requires the foundation to be at least 8 inches above grade, they have to remove it and put it back. That is where this all started.
Right. And
I have never done this. It's my first time. So that is where this started. And they removed it, put it back. There was an inspector, somebody apparently, before we even did any demolitions, apparently a neighbor said we need a demo permit. So that's why we got it. So according to us, we did everything that we needed to. So, and also my engineer said on the approved building permit, usually if they don't want us to remove a wall, there is a note which says, do not remove walls. Apparently on the approved plan or anywhere, there is no note saying do not remove wall on the approved building permit. And the approved building permit was applied as an R new. I had gone in for an alteration, which the county said I cannot do it, and I have to do it as a new building permit, which is why they gave me an R new. So now I heard somebody saying we went in as an alteration, but that's not what they gave us an R new as a new building permit. And after all the inspections, finally, at wall check is when we found out that, we should not have removed that wall. So and it is the surveyor, the engineer actually sent the surveyors. We have the old and the new stakes. So the difference was about 3 inches from the front of the house because the stakes were different. If you see the front, I think goes from 13.9 in the original one to 14.3 or something.
Yeah, 13.5 to 14.3 for the front.
14.1, yeah, because all of them were chicken fences there all around. Both the neighbors actually come into my property. And I heard there were only 2 supporting letters. I got 5 out of the 6 neighbors' letters which I submitted. The last one being yesterday. And I have acknowledgement from Meg that she received. The 4th one, Blake, you had acknowledged it, and 5th one, Meg acknowledged that you received. So only one neighbor I was unable to. I reached out 3 times, and I was unable to get. Nobody was, there in the house. But I do have 5 neighbors who have signed.
Okay, I was looking at the plat. So what you initially, and I'm sorry that I was looking at that and not listening intently. You demoed the walls down. You had 8 inches that you had to keep.
We need to raise 8 inches if it is on grade. It's an old house, and apparently the foundation was on grade.
Got it.
So that is what triggered this whole thing, where they said, oh, if we do this, it is not going to clear inspection because it has to be above grade.
Right.
And then they just went about doing the work. And, we had 3 piers. We got that inspected. We got plumbing inspection. We got wall bracing inspections.
And then you did the wall check.
Everything.
And this was
Finally,
already
at the
done.
wall check is when they said, oh, you did this. I was like, that's where my confusion, like none of this was willing because I have a approved building permit, I have a demo permit, and I asked the engineer and he says there is no note on the approved permit that nothing has to be removed, that I cannot remove it.
And you had several inspections for other things.
Yes.
Not knowing, it seemed like.
So we went to the whole 4 months of inspections to get to this point. We need to get the wall check before we get so the plumbing, all the trade work is complete. So if the wall check is at a time when I have to put siding and insulation and the house is almost done.
I understand.
I didn't bypass anything. Everything I was asked to do, I went in as an alteration. They said, no, it's an R new. I did that. I did a demo. The reason you have demo permits too, is the first one I didn't file correctly. So then I had to file it the second time. So I'm at a loss myself. That's why, in fact, Blake might know, or I talked to zoning for almost 3 weeks to saying, how can I get to this point? At a wall check, you tell me I did a mistake.
I feel like you're not the first person that's gotten here because of a wall check very late in the game. And that's unfortunate, I think.
Is the existing dwelling exactly the same footprint as what was taken down?
Yes.
I don't think so.
No, it's slightly bigger on the front, but it is your letter
The
to
foundation is the same. The
8
survey shows 6 inches from the first time to the second time, because they say that can happen based on where the surveyor does it. But
So
the
that's like a
foundation is
margin
the
of
same.
error.
So,
A margin of error.
yeah, that's what they said.
I mean, they need to be precise, but
But the foundation is still the same.
it's just raised.
Yeah, raised by 8 inches.
So you didn't remove the foundation?
No, ma'am.
You just, okay. All right.
So also the foundation, they said it was hollow. The CMU blocks, it was olden one, so they had to fill it. They said and then we also had to reinforce the footing according to the structural plan. So we reinforced the existing footings and raised it.
I'm a little more understanding of what happened and a little more sympathetic.
Because in my mind, I'm like, I have done everything that the county asked me to do. If at any point I didn't, and like you said, I am right. Like there is a county truck going every 15 minutes on Joy Street.
I would like to talk about the garage.
Yes.
Briefly. So my memory serves you moved the garage from the plans a little bit closer to the house.
Yeah.
But we're at 7.6 feet instead of 8 feet. But if we were another, 6 or I forget if it was a 6 foot or a foot, it still would be not conforming. So I guess I don't know if this is a question for the applicant or for staff. How is that garage not flagged for BZA approval pre-building permit, right? Because I believe the applicant's package says that it was about 7 feet from the property line, and then he decided to move it 6 inches closer to the house. So it wouldn't have been, if it's not conforming now, it would not have been conforming originally.
I believe the original house was built well before the zoning ordinance. I believe.
No, but the garage was not built though.
Yeah, there was no garage.
There was no garage on the original plot.
Driveway.
Sorry, so I think I misunderstood your question.
My question is specifically about the garage.
Okay.
Right. So the garage is the ask here for the garage is 7.6 instead of 8 feet. The applicant asserts in the papers that he moved it closer to the house, right, to make the neighbor more comfortable with it. But if on the plat it was further than it is now, that means it was less than 7 feet, and code is 8 feet. So how come that didn't get flagged for BZA approval?
From a separation standpoint, the separation requirement between the wall of the main dwelling and the wall of the garage would be 8 feet. So it sounds like what you're asking is.
Well, I guess there's two questions, right? I'm asking about the setback, what's the side setback requirement for a garage?
Mm-hmm.
And then the separation from the house. And I don't have right.
Yeah, as long as the garage doesn't exceed certain footprint sizes, which is 560 square feet in the R6 zoning district, R5 and R6 zoning district, and doesn't exceed 1.5 stories and 25 feet in height, it can be as close as 1 foot to the side and rear property lines.
So the side is okay, but the separation is not okay. Right, separation is 8 feet?
The separation requirement is 8 feet, and now moving it closer to the house, they are seeking BZA relief for that.
I don't see that.
But even not moving it closer to the house, even as platted, it could not possibly be 8 feet.
It was 7.6 initially, so wouldn't that have triggered?
7.6 is after, in the new plat.
No, the separation.
7.6.
No, I'm talking about the 4.5.
Oh. No, that's to the 4.5 to the screened AC unit. This is the wall of the.
Oh, okay.
7.6.
Okay, yep.
That was also a mistake because the chicken fence that the neighbor had is inside our property line. So he was looking at 1.5 or 1.9. That's how they moved 4 or 4. They told me they're moving 4 inches, but then when they did the sheathing and everything, it became 6 inches inside.
Sorry, yeah, I was looking at the wrong number.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you moved it over, okay, because you thought the fence was the property line, but it wasn't.
The stake was in the wrong place because of the chicken fence. And when the guy went in, he plotted it in that way, thinking he was getting 8 feet. Because we thought we had, 2.3 feet. But then when the final plat came, it was a mistake of the engineer. He thought 4 inches, but it moved. I don't know how that works, but.
And just to know, Mr. Rissy has his hand up.
Thank you. Mr. Rissy, you need to kick me if you want to speak.
It's really hard to kick you from here, but
you need a longer foot.
Yeah. I've pulled up some of the plans from the approved building permit, and I just wanted to let you know the building permit was approved with the new garage 1.9 feet from the rear property line, which is by right, 1.9 feet from the side property line, which is by right, and 8.8 feet of separation between the garage and the dwelling. So that's what was approved originally.
8.8?
Correct.
8.8. Yeah, that is really hard to read on here, but I think it is an 8.8.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. And now we're at 7.6.
Because we shifted.
Yeah, we shifted closer to the house. So it was on the left side, they moved it to the right.
And
So now it's 2.5 feet from the property line?
Yeah, 2.3 is what I was told.
which is by right.
2 point.
And that's by right.
Right.
Mr. Rissy or Mr. Bowen, is the eave dimension separation of eave dimension between the garage and house? Do we care about that?
No, we would measure the separation requirement wall to wall.
Okay.
And eaves would be given a 4-foot encroachment into that allowance. So theoretically, if the house had an eave and the garage had an eave, they could touch.
They could touch, right.
Yeah.
And it more like a porch. Breezeway.
Might actually be nice for rain.
Okay, I don't know what to do with this one, guys.
So, Mr. Rissy, did you say that you had the plat from the building permit?
Correct.
Yeah. But we don't have it.
I submitted. That sheet has the.
It's kind of microscopic.
Mr. Rizzi, do
and
you think
it's
you
not
could send it to
official.
Brett so he could put it on the
need,
screen?
like a seal.
I can put it on the screen all by myself.
Oh, you can share now. That's fabulous.
Meg made me a presenter.
Mr. Rissy's been promoted.
That's right. It might be too small, so let me just zoom in there for you.
Can you give me the date on that seal? Or the date of whatever the document's dated?
May 13th.
Date May 13,
Oh,
2023.
I'm holding it too. I could have found that.
Oh, and stamped up top, May 13, 2023.
So that's the same date as the demolition permit? How does that work? It's actually a week after the demolition permit. Very confused.
More questions.
I'm not.
Stephen, did
So
you say
we-
that was the plat associated with the building permit or the demolition permit?
I think with this is with
This
the
was-
demo permit.
Building permit.
This was the R new permit.
Okay, so that's the building permit.
Yes.
So Ms. Malice previously had provided you with the date of the demo permit, if that helps clarify.
We did, and this is like a week after the demo permit. So how is the building permit being issued after the demo permit?
Because they stamped it when the demo permit, like he did the survey that day. When they got the demo permit, it happened to be the same day, and then the permit came the next week.
But I'm saying in terms of the action.
There's separate permits.
Isn't there a building permit before the demo permit?
No, the building permit and the demo permit are actually separate permits, and they're actually reviewed by separate teams within zoning.
So they applied for a demo permit
Yes.
before they tore the walls down.
I would defer to the applicant there.
Yes. Because we actually had a notice by an ISD inspector that we cannot demo the house. Apparently, when we put a silt fence, a neighbor complained that we are demoing without a demo permit.
So so you knew that you had to take the walls down?
No, I was told we don't even need a demo permit because somebody complained and there was a letter. I just went in and said, hey, ISD inspector says I need an demo permit. So that is why I have 2 demo permits, because I was trying to figure this out.
So when did you this is your first building permit was in May?
Yes, ma'am. That's when I got the building permit.
I'm not following.
Mr. Rissy,
sequence.
again, just kicked me and he has his hand up.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say, typically when you're doing this type of work, if the walls are remaining, you don't need a separate demolition permit.
Right.
In this case, it's because it sounds like the demolition was proceeding before the building permit was approved and the silt fence was installed. That's what seems to have triggered the neighbor to, I'm going to defer to the applicant.
Yeah. To get a building permit, I was asked by DES to actually submit my silt fence pictures. They said because it was less than 2,500, I had to submit, Samantha Blue, I think, DES team said, unless I submit, I put a fence up and submit it into my, and you will have pictures in my building permit, and all the communication saying that only after we submit pictures of the house with the fence can they approve a building permit.
The
Because this
25
did not have a grading plan. This house doesn't have a grading plan.
because the property or the limited disturbance was under 2,500 square feet. In this case, a LDA or a limited disturbance activity permit was not required. So it sounds like DES required silt fencing to be in place before the issuance of the building permit.
Correct.
There we go.
Yeah, that delayed my project by a month also because I just didn't understand. So my permit took about 15 or 16 months.
So when did you determine that you needed to take the walls down?
While
When?
they were trying to, when the construction team came in and trying to put up the walls.
When was that?
Sometime in July, August.
After you got the demolition?
Yeah, that's when they did it.
I'm having trouble with the chronology.
I mean, I don't know how to explain this, but I did exactly everything.
I don't know where my colleagues are, but actually, I think I know where my colleagues are, but I think I'm comfortable with the chain of events and the things that have happened and the footprint more than I thought I was gonna be initially. So I think I would support the application, but I will just spiel you guys out. Whether if you want me to make a motion and we can see where we stand, I'm happy to do that. But
I'm here
just let me know.
after 2 years and substantial amount of money, and I don't know what to do about this.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Mellis.
I feel like I don't have a clear picture of what is happening here. And I would feel much more comfortable if we had the plats and some of the other documentation to help us. I want to be able to positively say that this is being built in the same place that it was before. And I know the applicant sent that little thing around, but I'd like to see the survey that came with the building permit.
Sorry.
That the actual.
All the plats are in the survey or in the building.
That's just me. I'm not comfortable asserting anything here without that documentation. And that doesn't mean I don't, I wouldn't approve it at some other point. But right now,
if I may,
I got comfortable seeing that online, or on the screen, and knowing that the numbers matched up. That made me feel considerably better about it.
It only because I'd like to see it, an official document rather than a handout.
Right.
If I may.
Well, we did. We saw it in the demo permit on Stephen's screen, who was.
I'd like to see it in the
county.
building.
You just need it printed out.
Oh, the building. I'd like to see what came with the building
Can
permit.
we pull up the building permit, please? Because it's there.
I'm just telling you, you may get your project. I'm just telling you that, I'm.
Does anyone else have any comments? Ms. Freshman?
I would just say that I think that maybe you want to defer the case in order to get more documentation. My concern, there are a lot of plats around and a lot of permits being referenced. I would like to see a timeline. And so that it's clear what was done when, and when the applicant intersected with the county and what the county told them to do. I just have this nagging feeling that that the process is out of control if someone can build a house like this with as many setback significant setback issues. And I understand maybe that's what was there before, but that's half of Arlington. At what point we get to the point now where rejecting the project is a significant problem for the applicant. And yet I think we've seen some glaring problems in the process. So if it's not going to be addressed tonight, then I think part of the preparation for whenever it comes back is the timeline process and the interactions with the county. And at what point, if you wait to a wall check to tell somebody that their house is drastically out of conformance with the zone, that's way too late.
I agree. Which I definitely agree that it's too late. I don't know that that's the applicant's fault. I think that's the county's fault.
I started my diatribe by talking about the fact that I was concerned about the process. And that's what I'm trying to say is that here we have a house that's essentially built.
Yeah.
And a lot of invested in it. And there's been interaction and permits and whatnot along the way. But if this house came to us as a new project,
I'm not sure we would approve it.
it'd be kicked to the curb.
Right. I'm not sure we would approve it.
I know you. It's not the same as that just saying we're going to give you a 7-foot instead of a 15-foot. This is way beyond that. So I think that at the very least, we ought to have more clarity in the timeline and the county's participation, because I know that changes to the system are virtually impossible, but there might be a red flag process that happens sooner than when we get to this point.
Very briefly.
I have a hard money loan on this. I'm paying like 9,000.
I'm sorry. We understand that, but we have standards in Virginia law and Arlington code that we have to adhere to, and it doesn't appear that we have the information we need to be able to make a decision.
The building permit
Mr.
has
Chairman?
the existing
Ms. Malice.
plat, sir.
I'd like to make a motion.
Ms. Malice, please.
In case P-11927-24-UP-1, I move the Board of Zoning Appeals defer this matter to March, the April, 2 months.
Oh,
It's got to be.
I can bring I have all the documents.
And we need it in a staff report is what we need. We need a staff report. So that's the question, deferring it to May.
let's try to get it in April if we can.
The April agenda has not yet been finalized. Right now, I believe we have about 12 items tentatively on the agenda, and we'll be finalizing it next week.
Can staff have the documentations in a staff report that we're looking at timelines and building permits and plats in the next
Would
month?
the timeline be provided by staff or would it be provided by the applicant? What would be?
It would be the applicant, but we
The
need to
applicant.
tell them what we need exactly and give a list so that they can get it in time for you guys.
Yeah, as long as we have information before we finalize instant staff reports or even as supplemental materials, even the day before the hearing, it shouldn't be an issue for us.
And I think Ms. Malice stated that she would really like to see the building permit and accompanying
The
documentation.
original building permit, the documentation that comes with it, the demo permit and the documentation that comes with that. And, that has the dates of those things.
It's possible
with that
we
one.
might not be able to disclose building permit documents under FOIA. Single family homes do have certain protections under FOIA, so we might not be able to disclose those
Or you're more concerned with the plats that are.
as staff.
Yeah,
If the applicant provides them as supplemental materials, I think that would be fine.
I'm willing to.
I want to see a plat that came, with every step of the way, and I want dates.
That's readable.
Yeah, that we can read. And I don't know, do you have copies of all?
I have all of them here too, ma'am.
Okay.
I can submit it.
So
tomorrow or-
you have to work with staff so that they get into a report that we can, you know, the public can look at and we can look
Yeah,
at.
we can certainly work with Mohan on that request.
Okay.
Yeah.
April
So
is April 17th.
Can you, then this happen by the April 17th meeting?
I can do it tomorrow.
Yeah, it sounds like documentation is ready, so we
We'll
could
defer
just
the
accept
vote to
it.
the BZA April 17th meeting. And that was my motion, so I would need a second.
So if I understand, you want the building permit, demo permit, and the timeline, chronological order.
But it should-
Building permit, demo permit, and what was the last item?
And a timeline of all the events here,
all the players.
all the players and all the events.
Yeah, so some of it is staff too, I think.
Yes.
Not just, you know, the documents that the applicant has.
So what is the, I guess, what is, I would like to clarify the role of what you expect the applicant to submit and what you expect staff to provide as well.
I'm really not interested. I don't care who provides it. I'd like to see the original building permit, the plat, the demolition permit and the plat. And I guess there's 2 demolition permits. So it's the original building permit.
There's only one demo permit, man.
One of them was filed
One
incorrectly.
was expired, yeah.
It was erroneous. It was the incorrect one.
And then, you know, if staff has any information about when inspection took place, wall checks, you know, what the inspection process was. I assume it didn't start before the building permit. But, you know, you mentioned the silt fence was put up, so what triggered the silt fence being put up before the building permit was actually issued?
Because there was
So we have a motion for a deferral until April 17th. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion made by Ms. Malice, seconded by Ms. Freshman. Further discussion? I will call the roll. Ms. Malice.
Aye.
Ms. Freshman.
Aye.
Ms. Clark.
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion to grant deferral passes 5-0. We will see you next month.
yes.
Ms. Freshman, do you have any minutes? Minutes. Passage of minutes.
Oh,
Oh, you
I'll
want
move
me to,
that
okay, I'll
You
move
always do it.
approval of the minutes, whatever.
You always do it.
Sorry, I'm still in the in the last case.
All right.
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals approve the minutes from the February 21st, 2024 BZA hearing.
Second.
A motion to pass the minutes.
Oh, wait, can I amend that?
Both. Yes.
Yeah, I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals approve the minutes from the February 21st, 2024 BZA hearing and the February 22nd, 2024 BZA hearing.
Second.
A motion to pass the minutes made by Ms. Arthur, seconded by Ms. Malice. Any further discussion? I will call the roll. Ms. Malice, Ms. Freshman, Ms. Clark,
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion to pass the 2 sets of minutes passes 5-0. The agenda having been completed, this hearing is now adjourned. See everyone next.